Hi, I'm Taylor. This is video for my second discussion in economic class. First question, what is GDP? Why does government calculate the GDP? GDP is gross domestic product. That's the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period. The government calculate GDP to see how much resources they have available and how well the sales of goods are doing. So basically, GDP is used to determine whether an economy is growing or experiencing a recession. Second question, what are three factors that limit the usefulness of knowing GDP? First factor that limits the usefulness of knowing GDP is a government can control economy. On the right side of GDP equation, it includes consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net export. So this equation makes it evident that government affect economic activity, controlling government spending directly and influencing consumption, investment, and net export indirectly through changes in taxes, transfers, and spending. The second factor is GDP cannot be used to measure overall well-being of a nation or the standard of living. In the podcast, they said we should not try to make it to do something that it isn't intended to do. So GDP only measures economy, and that's the limit of the GDP. Last factor is the exclusion of non-market transactions or black market. They mentioned in the podcast that in US, the black market do not count toward GDP, but in some other country, they do count it. For example, Italy. In the 80s, Italy started counting its black market, and just overnight, the Italian economy became bigger. So I guess the exclusion of non-market transactions is a factor that limits the usefulness of knowing GDP. For the last question, if you had control of GDP calculation, what would be one thing that you would add to GDP that is currently not being counted? I think I would add the transfer payments of the government, because I think money is a resource and US dollar is made by the government. So the government transfer payments should be counted as services. And how should it be counted, measured, and added into GDP calculation? I think I would do the amount of bills multiples the value that it holds, and it should be added as an element of the GDP equation. So GDP equaled consumptions plus investment plus government spending plus net export and plus transfer payment, which is the bills multiple the value I just said. Or It could be included in the government spending in the GDP calculation, but same way that I just explained. The amount of bills multiple the value that it holds. Thank you for listening.